Fundamentals of logic. Many people still imagine the truth to be relative, but they do not provide a rationale for this. In fact, the logic itself is not based on the relative but on the absolute. But what would be based on relative? The madness is based on the relative, because it escapes from the logical. In fact, everything that is relative is not logical. So, fundamentally, whoever defines truth as relative should develop a chaotic and meaningless world. More such people who say truth is relative usually mix the logician with the permissiveness of his will. Thus, an individual would define to others what is relative and what is absolute. Now, things are absolute or relative. There is no absolute medium or relative medium. Some people like, for example, the example in which a small person finds the other great, and asks such a person is great? But if there is another person greater, that which was considered great is not now small? Is this not proof that it is relative truth? Of course not. Just watch carefully. If we have two individuals, one greater than the other, we can then say that one is high and another is low? And if you put a third higher than the two, what was high becomes low to the highest. Now, the problem is in the high term. The high term as it was put is irrational because it defines nothing. For if you continue to put smaller and bigger people, only those of the tip will be the highs and the lows. For example, if I set an object by default, would individuals change their size if I put other larger and smaller ones? Of course not. A man with 1.70 meters continues with 1.70 even though I put a 3 meters man by his side. If such a height does not vary, then there is no relative and yes, absolute. Now if I create a concept without reason, it is not that the universe ceases to be absolute, only I lie to myself saying that it is relative. Another example, a person is inside a train, looking at another train, wonders, which train is in motion and which is standing. See what sees the individual inside the train, with one of the trains stopped and the other in motion and vice versa. It all looks the same, it just seems. Let's see, if one of the trains is stopped and the other moving at a speed close to the light, when the moving thing stops, the time for it would hardly have passed, and what was stopped, time passed. That is, in one example the stopped was 30 minutes thinking that it was in movement, and the one that was in movement thought that spent a few seconds. That is, who was in motion and who was standing was stopped.